My name is Masegkoa, Masire Mwamba, the ambassador of Botswana to the Federal Republic of Germany. And it is my honor and privilege to meet with you to discuss very briefly the impact of poverty on women and what it is we can do as we consider and we discuss this afternoon the financial inclusion of women. Let's start with where we are right now, COVID-19. This is a crisis like none that we have ever seen in the world. Apart from our normal human resilience, which is quite strong and quite and has helped us prevail in what seemed like impossible adversity. COVID-19 has stripped away the veils concealing poverty and vulnerability. This calls for new dialogue on what do we mean by poverty and what are some of the ways that we can respond to address poverty. It has also illuminated a glaring light on the reality of poverty for close to a billion people across the world. An estimate by the World Bank using 2015 that 10% of the world's population lived on less than $1.90 a day. On the face of it, there has been some progress made. In 1995, we all recall the Beijing conference, which talked about women, which talked about how we can raise more women out of poverty, and which really propelled a lot of countries to start looking at the laws and policies that guide and support the women's development and the women's contribution to their own lives and livelihoods and to their nations as a result of that. But in spite of all that, women and girls living in poverty are more vulnerable. Statistics shows that the impact of COVID-19 alongside the impact of poverty generally affects more women and makes them a lot more vulnerable. When women are poor, their rights are not protected. They are deprived in so many different ways. And we find that their participation in the broader society and economy is wholly marginalized. They are usually the last ones to eat, the last ones to access healthcare, and routinely are trapped in unpaid and demanding domestic tasks. Ending extreme policy is within reach, but it can only be within reach if we involve all women, if we respect their rights along the way, and if their voices in decision-making on managing the economy, on sharing the benefits and the costs, and if we do so with extreme urgency. The societal disadvantage and inequality they face because they're women shapes their experience much differently from those of men. The norms influences institutional policies and laws that define women's and men's access to productive resources, such as education, employment, land, and credit. And these persistent inequalities and differences in women's roles greatly influence the causes and the experiences of women in poverty. To uplift women out of poverty, yes, we need policy solutions. These must address the myriad ways that structural and societal sexism and racism uniquely burden women, depressing their wages and limiting their opportunities. We talk about lifting women out of poverty, requiring robust policy solutions that will impact the long-term economic security. More than 1/5 of women, roughly 22%, have a persistent low income compared to approximately 14% of the men. When exploring issues of female poverty, we must look and give primary attention to education, to health, and many other issues that must be recognized, analyzed, and addressed to stem this pattern that increases inequalities. Learning lessons from the challenges of COVID-19, reform needs to address this kind of vulnerability. Quality healthcare is not available to all. Access to education, access to financial, commercial. What can we at an individual level do? Why does it matter that we are talking about this and talking about it now? Because problems that are created by poverty can also spill over into the entire society. Poor health decreases work productivity. It increases the cost of basic needs. And if each of us play our part, poverty pieces are like a jigsaw puzzle. There are so many different parts that need to come together. And so all of us needs to be all hands on deck to be able to support and to respond. I conclude my brief comments with an example that was given by Muhammad Yunus in 1974, when upon returning to Bangladesh, his home country, he realized there was a dissonance between the poverty that he experienced and saw with his own eyes day to day, compared to the conventional economics theories that he was espousing in his day-to-day work. Where was his power? He questioned himself. What could he do about it? And from a very small project of lending a group of women a measly amount that was basically what they required for survival, giving it to them as a loan and not as a gift, but allowing them to work hard and to repay the loan. This experience led him in 1983 to develop a bank, which now has over 1,500 branches and is supported in over 58 countries. This has been modified in so many ways. Even here on the African continent, we too in Botswana have our own kind of societal, community-based, using the same principles of women who want to support each other, pooling their resources on a rotational basis at the end of the month to be able to support each other when they have family tragedies, when they have family occasions, when they have livelihood issues that they need to address, and when they can pool and even pay for their children's school fees by pooling together, supporting each other. We know that as women, we can do it and we can do it well. I thank you very much for this opportunity.